Hi, everyone. My name is Les Velez, and welcome to the Opus interview series. Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 1994. Our mission, simply put, is to help people having paranormal experiences. I'm the co-founder and chairman, and for more information on Opus, please go to our website at opusnetwork.org, which you can see right behind me here in the background. I'm very happy and thrilled to have Geraldine Orozco with me today. Geraldine has an incredible background. She's a certified hypnotherapist, a neurolinguistic practitioner, a pranic energy practitioner, a quantum energy practitioner, a meditation master, a mindfulness-based stress reduction therapist, a Qigong master, a shamanic energy medicine founder and or CEO of San Francisco-based Bay Area Meditation, which offers international virtual corporate meditation programs. Founder and CEO of Higher Healing, that's HIRE healing.com, a virtual holistic and intuitive wellness nexus and social directory. Founder of hybridmother.com. That's a very interesting topic. International research and support group for experiencers, hybrid parents, and ID phenomena. And she's also a board member of Opus. So as I said, I'm really thrilled to have you here today, Geraldine. And I want to kick it off here by saying, with all these things that you've gotten into, what really got you to this place?
Thank you. First of all, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Lester, for taking the time to do this. It's wonderful. Well, how did I get started? My journey starts in 2008 when I began to go deeper into my spiritual work, and I funded Bay Area Meditation, really just as a means to kind of connect with people that are meditating and doing the work, much like I was at the time. And it kind of just grew from there. We had about 60 people in my office, and from there it expanded into their corporate office and the other person's corporate office, and it grew into a business. Working in that for several years, I was also doing my own internal work, and I had a partner that passed away. And I think that was kind of the catalyst that made me go into questioning things aside from just everyday regular life. And I began to deprogram myself, just simply because I was not finding the answers outside of me. And what I realized is that as I began to deprogram any belief systems that were limiting, any kind of fear ideas, all the perceptions of myself, just as a woman, as the roles that I'm playing, as a partner, as a daughter, in my career, I realized that it was quite, empty at that time. And so as I went deeper and deeper and asked these questions about the, meaning of life and what we're here, and primarily trying to understand what love was really, that's where I began to kind of enter into a new state. And in 2013, I had a a conscious experience in the physical. And the thing is that I'm a lifelong contactee. So from the age of 5, I had already been having kind of experiences, but I didn't know, how to categorize them or what to call them, these experiences. But this was the first time that it was completely conscious, completely remembered everything from beginning to end. And that kind of catapulted me into this new understanding of reality, shattered my old paradigm of perception and how I saw life, and took me into a completely different direction, really, in my career. 5 years after that, I was in a partnership which ended. And that's when I decided that I wasn't able to live 2 different lives. One life was the experiencer and one life was the career person. And I couldn't find where to merge them, and finally decided to just sell the business. I had a event planning company that I also sold. And I decided to dedicate myself to this work because it was incredibly important. And I noticed that actually other people were having this experience and I wanted answers. And I wasn't necessarily finding the answers online when I was researching about the topic, and I needed to understand more about it. So this is how I started and got into it.
Yeah, this is something that many experiencers have an issue with, is the fact that when they do have these experiences, where do they turn? Who do they talk to? Um, and oftentimes you can't talk to family members. You can't talk to coworkers. You can't talk to clergy. It's not a topic that many people are tuned into, which is very unfortunate. And oftentimes, and I'm sure you might have even gone down this road, maybe you can tell me about that, that they reach out to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And then they find out, because they think they might be crazy, that they find out that they're not. And then what? What happens? And so that's the big question. So please go on with what happened next.
Well, it's great that you brought that topic up, and this is really why I decided to be part of Opus, because it is such a wonderful organization and so important for this cause. Because, I visited the psychologist and the psychiatrist, and I was like, am I going crazy? And obviously, the evaluations are no, you're not crazy, but these are definitely out of the ordinary circumstances. And at that point, they were beginning to cause PTSD, because I wasn't able to integrate the experiences into my everyday life. But more so than that, starting back when I was younger, at the age of 5, this is where I had my first contact experience. And then later on, in the age of 16, it's when I had the first insemination experience in the hybridization program. And that's where I started to have physical side effects. I became pregnant, and I was, a virgin child. So I was 16 years old. And the doctor, when I had the miscarriage, couldn't understand what happened. He said it was a blighted ovum. It's a strange circumstance that's happening in your body. Maybe it's stress, maybe it's hormones. So that's where the doctor kind of looked at me kind of strange, and they weren't sure how to deal with that. And that was also very stressing, right? And it happened again a couple times after that, in my 24 years old, 30 years old. That's when I had these experiences. And I became ill after some of these experiences. And when we went to the doctor, I would become ill for 2 weeks with some very, very strange. The only thing they could define it as was a potential amoeba in the body that they were not able to remove from the body. And after several testing from one day to the next, it was just gone. Everything was absolutely gone. Everything was back to normal. The doctor could not explain it. And that was just very strange and very stressing for my family, because they thought I was going to die. They thought I had like 2 months left to live if we weren't able to address the issue.
Wow.
So, this is where, the contact kind of turns in it really affects your life, because you're not really sure what is occurring there. And you're not able to piece it together. And there is really no support in the medical field that could provide you answers with that, aside from you need to take medication, or, something else is happening to you.
Yeah.
So it's important to have these organizations where we can discuss these topics, because what I found out is that, of course, my case is not isolated. There are hundreds of women that come to me to talk to me about their experiences. And it's just unbelievable how they have the same kind of experiences, medical, psychological, physical, and emotional.
Oh yeah, it is an incredible process that you and these other women are going through and have gone through. And it's tragic in a way that the medical community is not more aware of something like this. However, even if they are aware of it, and of course we do have a number of medical people on our referral list that are certainly familiar with it, but I still, we don't have answers as to, besides going through the pregnancy process and then the after effects, what are those after effects and why is that happening? Is it because of the process itself has caused this thing to occur to each person, or is it something else that's going on there that's part of the hybridization process? We just don't have the answers, but the support part of it is so important. And I know you've done a tremendous job with your site. With the hybridization process and talking to these women that are, have conceived basically hybrid children. And I understand how many children. I know you've talked about this before in other venues, but tell us a little bit about the children and what you've experienced with them.
So it is a very complex, topic. There are many layers to the hybridization program, but I discovered that I had 24 hybrid children in different kind of programs. Some are terrestrial programs, some are darker kind of agendas, and some are higher agendas. And the children that were presented to me at the time of the conscious abduction in 2013 were part of, let's say, a more positive agenda. I had a chance to actually meet the children. There, out of 8 of them that participated in this specific experience, 4 of them manifested into the physical form, and I met with them, interacted with them, bonded with them in that situation. And it was incredible just seeing the children and recognizing myself in them, and them completely seeing through me, knowing everything about me, knowing what was happening there, knowing my role in all of it, and knowing that that was kind of like the end of the role that I played in participating, in their development. And that was difficult for me at that time because I didn't understand. I didn't even remember that I had the children at that time. And it just raised a lot of questions about yourself and what you're participating in.
What? Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so this hybridization process is very fascinating to me because I have mixed feelings about it in the sense that, what is the agenda? Why are they doing this to you and to other women? What is behind all this? What is your feeling on that?
Yeah, so that was actually the question that drove me to literally make all the life choices that I made, because I wasn't understanding. First of all, when I met the children, I was trying to place in my mind how I could have forgotten that I had children. And that was very shocking to me. It was like, where in my life did I have these children? How did I forget that this occurred to me? And what's my role here? And I was ready to give up my whole life and just stay on board the craft and be with them. This is what I'm going through emotionally. And when I came back from that trip, from that experience, by the time I woke up, it was like 3 hours later, and I wanted to call the hospital. I wanted to call the police because I said, I have to connect with someone. I have to ask someone what to do, who talks about this stuff. Like, how do I? And actually, I found Opus actually, and I actually did fill in a little message during that time, like immediately, like the very next day when it happened to me actually. And so what happens is that what I discovered is that the children are not only being created by these higher vibrational and when I say higher vibrational, I want to be very careful when I use that, because now my understanding of things has kind of developed into a more neutral perspective about things. I think that we're experiencing duality on all expressions, and I think that this is also participant of that. Some of these children are being made for nefarious reasons by lower vibrational groups, everything from these draconian reptilian type groups that are utilizing the children as a means of counterproductive and destruction of life force, because children are the most powerful source of life force, and they are incredibly interconnected they have their information very fresh. And what this hybridization program is really about, it's about their DNA, it's about the code, the hologram, that is a projection of the holographic DNA of our bodies, of our organism. In this organism, we contain the information, of genetic information that is basically a snapshot of the entire world history, but more so than that, it's holding information about other dimensional aspects of ourself in which we are merged in genetically. Essentially, every single human on Earth is a product of the hybridization program since the beginning of conception of life on this planet. And we hold that historical record in our genetic code. That information allows access to these lineages. And what these lineages are is information that is kind of categorized in vibrational frequency. So all the species that we know of with names, which I think there's a very specific reason why humans tend to always see very specific species. It seems like we are there are certain groups that are kind of interacting with Earth more so, or it's part of the overlay of perception of how this information kind of organizes itself. But all of these species are not just dedicated to the form and that they have the facial features. It's a vibrational frequency, but it ranges from really low to high. We can say, for example, the lowest being the draconian, which is one of the oldest bloodlines, then descent the reptilian, then going down to all kinds of other let's say mixing with animals, and then going into more humanoid and then energetic beings that are supposedly the higher ones, higher vibrational frequencies. And I believe that the ones that are still in physical form, all of the species that are in physical form are a product of hybridization within what I call the matrix multiverse. So everything that makes up the reality in which we're participating in right now, what we call reality here in the multiverse, it's kind of like this system of creation, system of self-preservation and continuing of life forms. And the hybridization program is basically the sustainability program to maintain this matrix multiverse, which we're participating in. Every organism is participating in that in a very unique way. And hybridization agreements are made literally as a part of the participation of this matrix multiverse. So the concept of free will then kind of, it's almost as if you don't really have free will because you're a part of an organism. We're one, and we're a part of that whole. And so we play a role in that. And we play roles in many different aspects of ourselves because the human is made up of many dimensional aspects of itself. And the hybridization program is utilizing all of those aspects of yourself. It doesn't necessarily need just the physical form, the genetics of the physical form, because DNA is actually, it's holographic. It's like a blueprint. In the physical form, it allows for those physical traits to be integrated into whatever product is being produced. But there are also energetic beings that are created, and there are also high vibrational energy kind of essences that are created. And all of these are fragments of the self. And this is not the self. This is just one fragment of many fragments of this essence of, you can call it a soul, which is kind of like this essence of genetic information, which is utilized in order to create more of these organisms. Now, we can talk about the other side of that, which is the terrestrial programs, which are more focused on cloning. And cloning means that they take your genetic information and they make kind of an exact replica of you, genetically modified for specific reasons. And what I've discovered in this work and through my perception is that in the terrestrial program, there are many, many cloning programs because somehow there are alternate universes, you can say, that are being produced by the data in this terrestrial three-dimensional physical plane. And it's very interesting because sometimes there are merges between these two-dimensional planes. Sometimes you will see people meeting others that are very close genetically, and it's actually it's a study that was done about clones that literally meet each other that are identical, but they they're not from the same family. And that's just in our planet, so I think that these kinds of cloning programs are very prominent. And their reasons for doing that is, again, the sustainability of some kind of matrix organism which we're participating in. And in my opinion, the hybridization program is about the conservation and the expansion of data, you can say, the data and of creation, because every kind of, we essentially are a cocktail of DNA, and every single genetic addition to our bloodline allows for access to the traits information of these genetic lineages. And every species is a vibrational frequency that has access to those specific dimensional planes in which they thrive in. And that means that we have access to that information. So for the human, this can be very empowering if we know how to utilize that, because we can access and channel information, which is why a lot of star seeds right now and some highly advanced people are actually tuning into this data and channeling this interesting information, which can be very productive because it can tune into advanced technologies, it can tune into healing modalities, it can tune into information about what's happening in our society to help us move forward. We can tune into some interesting information if we're discerning about it. But most importantly, the physical body is the key to that, and maintaining the purity in the communication is important by entering a state of neutrality. And that's a little bit hard because the majority of people that are participants in the hybridization program get very caught up in the idea that they are parenting these children and there's a profound connection with the children. And although that is true, essentially, the children are fragments of their information and in some way express cyclical patterns of information that should be integrated by the creator of the organism. So yeah, the next part of this information is about how information is kind of self-organizing itself. Genetic organisms, I call the human body an organism, and every other entity an organism. They have the ability to, because we are one organism, we have the ability of tuning into this information and becoming wholer, healing, becoming more awake, more activated in our genetic code. This is, a lot of people are talking about activated DNA. What is that? It's, you become aware of aspects of yourself that are encoded in your data. And so basically everything that we call junk DNA is holding all of the instruction manual of all of these hybridized gene codes and all of these other species that we have access to. What writes this protein for this physical body is just a very tiny percentage. Literally, it's 3% of our entire genetic information. So we're kind of learning more about that. I think science is catching up, and this is the perception that I have and from what I've researched.
Well, I tell you, you so many things are going through my mind right now to ask you. I've always wondered about, you talked about free will, or maybe the lack thereof of free will. My father was a fatalist. He believed that, things were going to happen. It's going to happen, and then I think about psychics that have the ability to tell a person not only what happened in their past, but future events that are going to occur. And you talk about the fact that we're part of this larger whole, and so we can tap into various places in that whole to understand things. Matter of fact, in this series, I interviewed a psychic, and she told me a story about a woman that came to her, and for various reasons. And during that session, she tuned into the fact that her son was having significant issues, and she told her that she needed to be aware of those issues because he might commit suicide. And in that process, you know, the woman kind of didn't blow it off totally, but just kind of disregarded it to a certain extent. Well, to make a long story short, the son eventually did commit suicide. And so, you know, uh, how, so
Yeah.
how do these things are coming about, even when you know something is going to happen, and disregard it, and it happens anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so, but getting back to your children, your hybrid children, uh, did they ever tell you what their mission was as far as this positive program? What did they tell you?
So the children that are being created, so as I mentioned earlier, it's the sustainability of a matrix multiverse. So what does that mean? Every single organism that's created is encoded with specific genetic information that is a vibrational frequency that is a match to future timelines. So for example, these children that are higher vibrational agenda are designed to be reinserted into the reincarnation or a reincarnation cycle. It doesn't have to be our terrestrial Earth. It can be many others, because there's many millions, right? So they are inserted into a reincarnation cycle, matching what the organism requires. So that means Earth, let's say
Yeah,
Earth as this
yeah,
whole organism. So we're
correct.
constantly evolving. Everything is evolving. And what does that evolution mean is that we're constantly moving, and the vibrational frequency as a whole is also changing. So for that reason, everything that's being reinserted into each point has to be in alignment with that vibrational frequency. Otherwise, it won't last long,
Hmm.
which is why we have souls that come in and out, exiting quite quickly. But everything is kind of designed to sustain that.
Now,
From the Yeah,
yeah, I'm sorry.
no,
Uh,
that's okay.
I so these children, as far as you said, you recognize them, in parts of you in them. Were they looking like you and I, or did they have features that were more alien, or what did they actually appear to you to be?
Yeah, they were humanoid in that they have two legs, two arms.
Mhm.
They have this physical body, but they are very combined and mixed with genetic information, which means that their skins and their eyes and other physical features are extremely unique. For example, the
Mhm.
child was very thin, very frail. His bone structure was thinner than a normal child
Mhm.
would be, and his skin was almost so pale that it was almost grayish.
Mm.
And his eyes, the pupil was the size of our ocular socket. You can imagine a
Wow.
pupil that size.
Yeah.
And incredibly complex pigmentation of the pupil. Very, very fine features, not a lot of facial hair or hair anywhere in the body other than the hair. And the hair was a very strange, almost like a gelatinous material, I would say,
Wow.
which was, I compare it to like glass noodles, if you've ever seen.
Sure.
Very, very
Yeah.
strange that you can actually see through to the scalp of the head, but it didn't look ugly. It looked beautiful,
Hmm.
beautiful little being. But what was most powerful about that was its presence, its energetic presence, and its ability. It's completely advanced. It has telepathic abilities. It could tune into you. It reads you like
Hmm.
nothing. And the other children were similar. There were two little girls. One girl was a blonde girl, blonde hair, same features as the other one. The funny thing about that blonde girl is that I had dreams as a child from the age of 5 until about 9 years old. I would have this repetitive dream where a light would show up and my mother would be bringing the little girl, this exact little girl, to me. and she looked weird in the dream. And
Mhm.
I was like, is this going to be a future sister of mine? Are we going to have a blonde daddy at some point? I wasn't sure what was happening, or
Mhm.
I was thinking, is that my child in the future? You
Yeah.
know, um, so I hear this a lot with hybrid mothers. They have kind of dreams ahead of time before they even meet the children. The other child was like a reptilian mix, and he had reptilian, let's say, scaly type
Mhm.
skin, but also human pores. And he had reptilian slit eyes. And
Mm.
he was tall. He was probably about, I don't know, 6 feet. And he was 26 years old.
Mm.
So that being said, the fetuses are they're sped up. The process of gestation is highly sped up. So even if at the time when I met the children, I was in my 30s, early 30s.
Yeah, and this person was
Um,
26 years old.
exactly,
Wow.
right? So
Wow.
it doesn't
Yeah.
quite make sense. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so those were the children that I met in the physical. Now, just to answer your question previously, I do want to mention that in the darker agendas, the children are sometimes made for destruction, as I mentioned before. And so this is the different sides of these agendas. The children are not meant for putting into a reincarnation cycle. But children are very powerful, very,
When you
very energetically.
when you say destruction, and what manner destruction?
Okay, so this is where we go a little bit darker into the darker
Mhm.
side of things, where we start looking at, well, what is the most powerful life force in our universe? It's creation energy, and creation energy is it is sexual energy, right? So anytime that that is inverted in any way, this is where we create a fragmentation, the deepest fragmentation of the human soul. And this is utilized terrestrially to create major, even in ritualistic things that are
Mm.
occurring in our earth. We see that as well, that these and this is a direct part of that. It's a product of that direct lineage of understanding. Okay, so they do the same thing. It's a destruction of the soul of the child,
Okay.
which fragmentation is the best way to um, kind of, let's say, enmesh a soul into this matrix. The more fragmented, the more trauma that a human experiences, the harder it is for the human to be able to reintegrate itself and move out of this cyclical reincarnation cycle. And so this is done to the children in order to maintain that aspect of itself in this space. It's a very parasitic kind of activity, and these beings feed off of that. They feed off this very low destruction. Their understanding of everything is very warlike. It's very militaristic concept of things, and they do manage the terrestrial program, which also does these things in our terrestrial realm.
Yeah, and that's that's the thing that you hear all the time. We have good people and bad people here on this plane, this earth, and then we got the same thing going on up there. We have good ones and we
Exactly.
have bad ones, and the yin and the yang. The light and the dark. This dualism that goes on is really interesting, and the reincarnation thing that you brought up, that's been coming. I'll tell you a quick little story.
Yeah.
Myself, I was in a support group meeting in San Jose when I was living out there, and one of the people in the group said, "I've seen you before." I said, "Really? We're at a UFO conference, gas station, whatever." "No, no, no. I saw you on board a craft." I said, "Really?" And I kind of blew it off, and shortly thereafter, maybe a year and a half, actually, 2 years later, another person said to me, "Hey, I've seen you before." And I said the same thing, UFO. No, you were sitting on a bench naked on board this craft and you were freaking out. And they told me to go over to you to calm you down. So at that point, I decided, okay, I'm going to go get regressed. And in none of the regressions from three separate people did I find anything regarding being on board a craft or being involved with extraterrestrials or anything like that. However, I found out multiple past lives. multiple past lives. And I've been told I'm an old soul, but the I guess I'm stupid too because I keep coming back. But the interesting part about all that is that somebody just more recently told me that perhaps I was taken in a previous lifetime, and things were, you know, done and whatever to me at that point. And so this reincarnation theme certainly seems to be very viable in my way of thinking. And you know, I don't know if you've ever heard the story about a doctor, a woman doctor that was on a kayaking adventure down in South America, and she went over a falls and got trapped at the bottom of this falls for over 30 minutes. And during that time, she saw these light beings, and she was just absolutely felt immense love. You know, she basically did not. She wanted to go towards the light, if you will, and they told her, no, no, no. You know, you have things that you need to do, and so you have to go back. And but they also told her at that point that her son, who was a little boy at that point, on his near his 18th birthday, he would pass away. He would die. And so she came out of that situation. She was fine, had no issue being underwater for 30 minutes. And, you know, she didn't say anything to her son, obviously. And around his 18th birthday, he got into a car accident and died.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so there is something else going on, folks. And, you know, I don't think we fully understand all of it, or maybe even some of it. But you know, what you've been talking about is just incredible. And with your hybrid children, you know, now you've had different types. Are they being inserted in different areas? You know, like the more reptilian one is going to a reptilian lifestyle, and then the other ones are going to go someplace else, where all these people are kind of look the same, I guess, is what you're saying, which is
Um,
fascinating, which is
Well,
fascinating.
kind of, yeah. Well, I just want to go back to this, what you mentioned about someone telling you that they saw you on board craft. I get
Hmm.
that all the time. And I've
Yeah.
actually also experienced it myself with an experiencer at a support group here in Sonoma,
Uh-huh.
where I saw him and I was like, oh my gosh, that is the man that I saw on board the craft. And so it does happen. And it's happened to me at conferences as well. And I hear this all the time in my support group. But we have to remember that some of our activity also, it's some of it is happening with our physical memory and we remember, but also some things are happening in other dimensional planes. So when we leave
Right.
the physical body, we're also having experiences, and sometimes those are harder to grasp, even in hypnotherapy, I
Mm.
find. Usually the ones that are a little bit closer to more conscious awareness are a little bit easier to unravel, but others are not. So yeah, to answer your question about the hybrids, are they going to be reinserted? Some of these hybrids are the ones that are in the Pleiadian group are already reinserted in other timelines. They're not necessarily coming to Earth, but
Mhm.
they will be going to other, planets. There are many, many planets that are sustaining life. Um, and yeah, they all have a role. They all have a role. Yeah.
Well, I tell you, it's you know, just looking at my notes here, you know, the people that have these experiences, what do you find is the most helpful thing that you do during your sessions with them to make them feel comfortable, reduce the stress level, if you will, and then uh, you know, just kind of describe that process that you go through with these people.
So I do two different things. One is called DNA reprogramming, and one is hypnotherapy. And as a result of my contact experience in 2013, I woke up with these incredibly powerful psychic abilities. I could see the multidimensional body. I could feel, I could see what people are thinking. And uh, based on that, I began to study my body, my physical body. I began to look at things inside of my interdimensional space, and also others in my clients that I was working with. So what that helps me understand is where information is stored in the body that needs to be released. So where there's trauma stored in the body, where we need to do healing, and all of this affects the physical. So a lot of my clients come with physical ailments, and we address the root cause of that. We begin to dissolve it, and usually the physical ailment begins to lessen in that suffering, or sometimes even heals. The other side of it is that, of course, you're experiencing a profound emotional healing, and most importantly, the reintegration of your fragments. Because I mentioned that the more fragments that you have, it's more difficult to move out of this sick cycle, this life cycle. You mentioned reincarnation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we keep coming back because we keep repeating the same cyclical traumas that we haven't learned in an entire lineage of information. And so if you understand what that cyclical pattern is, this is what we do in the sessions. We understand what it is, and we begin to clear that up. And you have all, you basically know what you need to do in this life in order to end that cycle. Once you're done with those terrestrial cycles, you can enter into higher levels of your body, and you can oftentimes have more contact and explore other dimensional aspects of yourself, which is essential to death. Because death, when we leave the physical body, we're going to be navigating in those realms, and you need to understand and be in alignment, in resonance, hopefully with something that's a little higher, more compassionate.
Right.
And the other side of my work is the hypnotherapy, and the very, very profound sessions, which we go really deep into the subconscious mind in order to access past contact experiences based on, you can have a trigger memory, a marker memory, for example, that it can be a repetitive dream that keeps happening, or a repetitive memory that you cannot get out of your mind. And usually when you go back to those memories, it begins to unlock experiences that you've had before. And everything is based on where you're at spiritually and emotionally. Not everyone accesses the information that they don't need until they're ready to receive it. And this is something that's important for contactees, because sometimes the information is very mind-blowing for contactees. So my job is to help you prepare emotionally, physically, mentally, so that you can and this answers your next question. What's the most helpful thing for contactees? In my opinion, it's understanding. We need to understand our participation in the hybridization program, and that does require spiritual development. It requires personal and emotional work, because once you have a strong foundation emotionally, you have the ability to navigate the unknown in a more calm manner. And all of this is going to be unknown, right? Everything in the non-physical is going to be unknown. So in hypnotherapy, sometimes we access past lives, sometimes we access contact experiences, and we heal from those. Sorry, Lester, you were saying something.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that you bring up the hybridization process during this. Now, when people come to you and that they have no concept of the fact that, either if it's a woman who's not had a child, or does not believe that she's had any child due to the hybridization process, do you actually go there with that type of information with them?
So if they feel they've had that experience happen, we will address it.
Right.
Is that what you mean? Yeah.
But if they haven't, then you don't address it, or do you?
No, absolutely
Yeah, okay,
not.
okay.
Everything is very specific
Okay.
to the case, and it's
Okay.
only people that we only address what each individual feels they want to address and have experienced. And sometimes we uncover more than they expect in the session, and other times, because we live in this hologram of creation, we essentially are creating everything, even on the highest level. So it's important for us to understand the mechanics of that creation. And for healing and for integration, understanding is the best. So if you understand your role in the creation of all these things, usually you will feel more comfortable, and you will heal from them, any kind of traumas that you're experiencing. And A lot of times, clients that come from very traumatic experiences as well, when they understand what happened and what is occurring, usually they will stop having traumatic experiences. You know, because it is about vibrational frequency, and your vibrational frequency changes the more that you integrate, the more that you understand, and that allows you to have better experiences, you know.
Doing these sessions now, how are you doing them? Person to person, or via Zoom or Skype, or
It's
things like that?
Zoom. It's Zoom
Zoom.
internationally right now. Yep.
Hmm.
So I work with people all around the world, and
Hmm.
yeah, mostly on Zoom.
Yeah, because one of the things that I'm also a member of MUFON's ERT, the Experiencer Resource Team, and one of the things that they bring up time and time again is uh, that it's very important to, especially if you're going to be doing it over Zoom or something like that, that the person should, again, depending on what kind of information comes up. I mean, if you're familiar with the Betty and Barney Hill audio hypnosis tape that's been played where Barney freaks out, and good thing that person was knowledgeable and was there to bring him down. Do you ever get into a situation like that where somebody really starts to freak out, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah. Well, you know, we are trained to deal with this. And of course, we go through extensive qualification of every client before putting into the hypnotherapy session to understand whether they are more likely to have this kind of experience,
Hmm.
this kind of response than others. And we adjust how we work with the client when that does come up.
Yeah.
Virtual actually has been surprisingly, I mean, in the beginning, I was skeptical to do it,
Hmm.
virtually because of this reason exactly. But yeah, we've been able, and the wonderful thing about working, because I am an energy healer as well, and so there's a container that is created in this work. It's not just by chance. Everything from our line that we're creating to the space that the person is working in, we create an energetic container in order to hold space. And out of all of the sessions that I have done for the past 5 years, we've never had any kind of problem in that. And it's
Hmm.
because of the kind of energy work that we're sharing, that we create. And I do have clients that have very traumatic experiences, and immediately we're able to remove them out of the emotional body of that experience and bring them into a safe place where they can see it from a distance. And now they can still receive what they need if they want to continue seeing it, or they can just decide to move away from that information, because some people are not ready for all that information.
Exactly, as they
So,
say,
yeah.
once the toothpaste is out of the tube, it's hard to put it back in.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the powerful thing about hypnotherapy is that when you wake up from your hypnotherapy, what you've experienced, even if what you saw was traumatic, usually the body has, it's beautiful because there's an intelligence to the body that allows you to integrate that in a more compassionate way, more comfortable, subtle way. And that even if you're experiencing these things, oftentimes people will have dreams after that to help them release the stress of these
Mhm.
experiences. And I equip my clients with a lot of techniques for meditation to help them continue that work. This is spiritual work. This is definitely, you have to continue the spiritual and emotional work. It's not just about having a wild ride in the hypnotherapy and leaving it there. There's integration that has to occur.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that you've hit the nail on the head. It is a spiritual thing, that it's a spiritual journey for all of us that are involved with this kind of thing, and
Yeah.
especially the experiencers. Um, you mentioned healing. I'm familiar with the healing process because I've been a subject of being healed by a gentleman that was in Vancouver, and I'm here in Texas, and he's one of the members of the support group. And in 2 sessions, my issue that I had, it was gone. It was absolutely gone.
Beautiful.
And and you hear about the fact that people that have had experiences either get healed, or they become healers. I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Salas. He's the major that was at the Maelstrom Air Force Base when this UFO came over and shut down the intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Oh, okay.
And he was recently at the MUFON Symposium this last year in Las Vegas with his wife. And I gave a presentation there to an experiencer group, and they they came up to me after the presentation and said, "Do you have some time to talk?" And I said, "Sure, come on over to my table," because I had a table there. I was trying to sell some of the books I just wrote. And so they sat down with me and they told me about the fact that they both had had experiences and together. And it was absolutely fascinating. And his wife basically became psychic, telepathic, and a healer all in one shot after this experience. And you talk about something that is positive and wonderful that can occur in these types of situations, as opposed to the more negative things that you hear all the time as well. But yeah, I think that
Absolutely.
healing process is just fantastic. And
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a lot of clients actually that experience this kind of healing. It's just unbelievable in our support groups what we hear, and of course in Opus as well, I'm sure,
mhm,
because what's happening is that you're entering, when you're taken out of your physical, you're and or in the physical, you're entering another dimensional plane. So obviously things are activated, and a lot of these contactees come back with psychic abilities, like what happened to me, or they have some gifts that they come back with, or they have healed things, just like you were mentioning. So this is really interesting, and it's kind of like, for me, in my experience, that was my proof about what happened, because I think that if I didn't wake up with these psychic abilities at the level that I did, I think I would question what happened.
mm,
Even myself, just waking up. Even if I was waking up, I had dirt on my feet. I had
yeah,
sunburn here. I had marks on my body. All
mhm,
those things happen. That
yeah,
even though I was still questioning, but with the psychic abilities that didn't allow me to go out for the next 3 months, where it's pretty life impactful. And I hear this from other clients, so
yeah.
it's pretty interesting.
It is. It is. And you know, this ability, a psychic ability. Now, Gary Nolan from Stanford University and Kit Green, who's been associated with the CIA and other three-letter organizations, uh, actually did some studies on experiencers, and they found that in the experiencer's brain makeup, in the area of the caudate putamen area, from the head of the caudate down to the putamen, there was a lot more connections there in the experiencer's brain that had telepathic abilities. Uh, and
Yeah,
so you wonder if that is something that has always been there and is activated by the experience, or is this something that the aliens, if you will, use that terminology, have caused, eons ago to come forward in these people um, after an experience. So it's the physical aspects of it are one thing, but again, being able to become psychic after an experience like that is pretty remarkable, I think. So it'd be great if you ever had your brain scanned to see how many connections you have in your caudate putamen
it's
area.
true. Yeah.
Uh,
Mm,
but I think that it's the old chicken and the egg, what came first.
exactly.
Uh, but and I think that's a reason too that the aliens follow people like this. That you might have that structure that was created by them eons ago, and
Exactly.
and
Yes.
so do you know if your parents or your grandparents have
Yes.
had
Oh, yes.
abilities?
Well, we didn't go into the whole details of the contact experience, but in this experience in 2013, my aunt was there in her
Hmm,
pajamas, completely unconscious as well. And, I didn't tell anyone other than my two parents after this experience. But years later, when I was basically in the film Extraordinary the Seeding, it came public, and my aunt told me, you know what, I can't believe that you had that experience that day, that exact night, because that night I had an experience as well. And I had a dream that these big beings were coming and they injected something in my back of my neck. And I ended up in the hospital the very next morning, and they didn't know what happened. I had a fever for 24 hours and then it went away. And I was like, how could you not have shared this with anyone else in the family? And she's like, I just didn't think very much of it. And it happened several times, more than that. My grandmother has had contact. My father has had contact. It goes down my mother's lineage, my whole mother's lineage,
Yeah.
and my whole father's lineage. And so, it's just the entire family that kind of came out and to talk about this. And it was something that would have never been talked about if I hadn't gone public, so it just goes to show. And I hear this all the time with my clients as well, that my clients will go have conversations with their family and discover that they've all had contact, at least on some level,
Yeah.
whether it was just a sighting or a really powerful, impactful dream, so, and you're absolutely right, Les, where it does. This is genetic, right? This is the thing that I was telling you about, the information that, in some way we're a hybridized race, which we've already had contact generations before, and we're kind of grouped in families vibrationally where this information exists. And sometimes these psychic abilities are also passed down generationally. I see this all the time in my sessions where we have ancestors that are really, really highly advanced healers and shamans. And it isn't until the client has a contact experience that everything is just turned on at a certain point in their life where things are changing. I feel like it's part of the evolutionary process of a lineage, perhaps.
Yeah. The spiritual awakening that's occurring. And I've often said that this is the problem that we have presently on this planet, is the fact that we've lost a lot of that spirituality, and being better stewards of the planet as a whole, and being better to one another, to love one another more instead of hate, and fostering fear, and things of that nature. I mean, I just think of this Russian-Ukrainian situation right now, which is horrible. I mean, those poor people in the Ukraine. I just feel for them and pray that Putin doesn't start a war. But why? What causes people like that to do the things that they do, and unfortunately we got too many people in this world of that ilk. And it's people like you that are on the totally opposite side of this whole process, and bringing your abilities to the fore, and helping people, and doing the wonderful things that you do. And Opus is absolutely so blessed to have you as part of the team. And I just
Thank you,
would love to
Les.
reach out and give you a big hug right now. But
Oh, me too. Thank you so much. It's the times are changing right now. It's such a specific time. And I think that even this potential war, that I think a lot of people kind of tuned into this potentially happening this year, these next couple of years. It's part of the evolution that we're going through, the Great Awakening. So I think the best that we have to remember to maintain the high vibration, and remember the laws of co-creation, that we can assist in co-creating and shifting timelines of the collective by our clear intention. And it's really necessary. I think that a lot of people have contributed to the past situation that we've experienced in the past 2 years as well. Things are kind of changing a little bit now, and now this is the next phase of that. And I think we're going to continue having changes till 2024. And that's when things are really going to change in another direction. So we just have to hang in there and stay very high, keep doing the work.
No, that's wonderful. Tell you another little story, a synchronicity story, if you will. that I was looking at an article on my phone, one of the news feeds, about a woman that was a clairvoyant in Bulgaria, and she evidently has hit the nail on the head on a number of incidents that have occurred. But one of the things that she talked about and written about was that in 2027, a asteroid would hit the Earth, guided here by aliens. Okay,
Oh, mhm.
and shortly thereafter, I got an email from Linda Moulton Howe asking if I knew, what were the people in the support group saying about future disasters. So I wrote her back, and then I told her about this Bulgarian clairvoyant, and so I sent her the article on that, and then a little while later, she sends me an article that was done by NASA in 2017, okay, that stated that in the year 2027, an asteroid would hit the Earth. But this was in big letters at the bottom, on each page of the article was exercise only. Okay.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah.
There you go.
And so we're both scratching our heads and saying, "Oh my God, does this clairvoyant know this?" And now NASA's put this out in a conference in Tokyo in 2017, and they had all kinds of details as far as the speed, where it
Wow.
was going to hit, and all kinds of stuff. But it was an exercise only.
Mm,
And so anyway,
that's
uh,
interesting. Well, some of these, well, yeah, that's very interesting. But some of these agencies are using psychics as well, to
oh
get
yeah.
information for a long time. So
I,
you never
I,
know. Yeah, that
I,
that lady's amazing.
one of the things I was interviewed this morning by a gentleman, a psychiatrist actually, who's got a called. That's why I was bringing up this synchronicity thing. He's got a synchronicity project going, and he's trying to collect data from people. But he also asked me the question, you know, the experiencers are telling us, a lot of positive things, like, we need to be better stewards of the planet, we need to be better to one another, and all that kind of thing. But the next question is, being that's an individual basis, all right, but how do we multiply that thing? How do we get that to come across the entire planet in all peoples? What is the recommendation? He's asked me to ask them, to ask the uh, intelligences, if you will, how do we get this whole thing across, the entire world and all peoples? I thought that was a very interesting
That's an
question.
amazing question. It
Yeah.
is.
And
I mean,
you're doing your thing, with individual people and yourself, okay? And I'm doing my thing over here. And but how do we all join together to, as you say, that intention, that
yeah.
a group intention to make it all happen, and not wait around for eons to finally get to the place where aliens would be open to coming and talking to us, in an open way.
Right. Well, I mean, I would just say, I mean, fear is the thing. I mean, we stay separate because we're afraid. We're even afraid of one another. We're afraid of
Mm,
judgment. We're afraid of whatever it is that we're afraid of, and coming into like unity really requires us to be able to surrender and to no longer be afraid of those things, and have kind of a very compassionate and clear understanding of why, what we're doing. So we've become so desensitized to everything, even suffering,
mm,
that it's become a norm to kind of ignore each other's problems, ignore the bigger picture, the things that need to be done right now. And so we need to stop doing that and come more into the physical body to be able to feel authentically the things that are happening around us. And that can be very fearful, very uncomfortable for people. So the more that we begin to train ourselves to be comfortable with the unknown on every level, even if it's our emotions, things that are happening outside, the easier it'll be for us to unite. I think that's work that has to be individual and collective right now. And I'm hoping in the next couple years that people will pull away from, you know, technology to try to go more into nature, into more of an organic state of being, where it allows us to
Yeah.
have this kind of
Yeah, I mean,
connectivity.
with the advent of the smartphone, and all of
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
it's you see
Well,
people all tuned into that, and
yeah.
maybe that's the answer. We have to have uh, ads that subliminally create a positive thoughts and feelings. Um,
Yeah, we're being trained. I mean, it's like it's interesting with all social media, with technology, we're somehow being trained to be desensitized from some of these things. So we need
mhm,
to untrain ourselves in that way. And it's done very subliminally, like you were
yeah,
saying, and
yeah.
subconsciously. So that has to be completely changed, by our awareness. Yeah.
Yeah, that's there has to be like a mantra, a song, or something that gets played. It's a popular hit, but in it's intoned in a way that the brain picks it up in a way. I forget the terminology for that. It's a certain type of music. Um, I can't think of it at the
Yeah.
moment, but
To like subliminally
yeah,
program.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. We'll have the next thing Opus is going to do is have a broadcasting network that plays that music nonstop,
Wow, that's
24/7.
amazing.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
But anyway, maybe that's an idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, uh, but anyway, I'd like you at this point to go ahead and tell the people how they can contact you if they have, questions, issues, or anything that, based on what we've talked about today. I mean, you've covered so many bases in your that bio that I read that it's phenomenal. I mean, all the time that you've spent, getting to be masters in all of these things is fantastic.
Thank you. Yes. So if you are interested in joining the support group to learn more about the hybridization program, you can join hybridmother.com. And if you'd like to work with me in hypnotherapy or any kind of integration of, traumas through DNA reprogramming, you can access geraldineorozco.com. And I also have a YouTube channel, Geraldine Orozco, where I teach a lot of techniques and tools to help you in everyday energy mastery. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. That's how people can connect with me.
Oh, that's great. And as I said before, if you want to contact her through Opus, you can do that as well, since she's a board member. You just have to go to the contact page and go there and just give us a little bit of information on yourself, and we'll get you connected. So anyway, Geraldine, this has been fantastic. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. And I want to thank the listeners and as I mentioned earlier, we're a nonprofit, or Opus is a nonprofit organization. So we depend on donations. So if you feel the desire to help us out in some small way, we'd appreciate it. And just go to opusnetwork.org, and there's a donate button there, and we'll take you to the appropriate site, depending upon if it's PayPal or a Visa or MasterCard type situation. But again, Geraldine, thank you so much. And we we thank you from the bottom of my heart and our hearts, and for being here today.
Thank you so much, Lester. It was a pleasure, and please support Opus. Definitely support. Thank you.